Alone by the lake, her tears revealed a hidden truth. His unexpected return changed everything. The sun glittered on the surface of the lake like shards of broken glass, its beauty contrasting sharply with the storm brewing in Sarah's heart. Alone on the weathered dock, she felt suffocated by the weight of her nursing scrubs, the fabric a reminder of long hours spent caring for others, while her own dreams lay neglected. At 38, her life had become a montage of expectations, family, community, and the echo of her father's once respected name. Today, the dam she had built around her emotions burst, and tears streamed down her cheeks, carving paths through layers of frustration and sadness. What was all this sacrifice worth, if it continued to go unrecognized? A voice in her head whispered the question, whenever she paused to breathe amidst the chaos of her life. Memories of childhood laughter echoed, now tainted by the pressure of family legacy, expectations splitting her heart in two. One part a dedicated nurse mending the physical, another a daughter grappling with the emotional. Gripping the railing tightly, Sarah closed her eyes, trying to drown out the familiar internal conflict. She envisioned Jake, her estranged brother, who once lived in vivid colors, before the world dimmed his artistic light. He had chased dreams that her parents scoffed at, visions of a free spirit that felt dangerous in the shadow of their father's political downfall. Their family had borne the brunt of that disgrace. But now, all these years later, the estrangement pulsed like a wound that refused to heal. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Sarah wiped her tears on the back of her hand, her gaze fell on the ground, and a glint of something caught her eye beneath an old fishing lure. Bending down, she unearthed a faded letter. Its edges crinkled, the ink faded but still legible. Curiosity ignited her. What truth lay behind this piece of paper? Handling it delicately, she felt an urge to uncover not just the letter's contents, but the narratives that defined her family. As she read, revelations tumbled like rocks down a mountain unspoken family secrets. Choices made in silence, pain forestalled in favor of pride. Her heart raced, a newfound anguish blending with confusion. The implications were staggering, a truth that might not only redefine who she was but also shake the very foundation of her family. Just then, a familiar figure approached, breaking her contemplation. Jake. His presence sent jolts of fear and excitement racing through her. He had wandered the world in search of identity, but now here he was, offering no promises and armed with the charisma that had both excited and frustrated their childhood. Would his return heal their family, or would it rip open old wounds? As his eyes locked onto hers, Sarah stood frozen, battling an overwhelming uncertainty. Her dedication to nursing, her obligation to the past, collided violently with the uncertainty of what might come next. Her heart thudded, a decision loomed closer, with ghosts of yesterday whispering in the shadows. Would she step toward this unpredictable new journey with Jake? Or would the fear of the unknown keep her anchored to the relentless expectations grinding her spirit down? Jake was just a few strides away, and with every passing second, Sarah's mind spun. The memories of their childhood swirling chaotically. They had been comrades in a world where ordinary was deemed unacceptable, and visions of greatness were buried beneath layers of familial disapproval. Yet, here he stood, offering a flicker of the hope she desperately needed. Though the fear of what their confrontation could unearth loomed heavily. "Sarah," he called softly, as if the weight of his voice could anchor her swirling thoughts. It was a sound so familiar, yet it ignited an inferno of debate within her. She could almost hear the echoes of their youth, laughter intermingled with the sound of autumn leaves crackling beneath their feet. But, like everything else in her life, His return brought with it an explosion of what-ifs and unresolved tensions. She steadied herself, gripping the railing more tightly, anchoring her turbulent emotions like a ship in a storm. "What are you doing here?" she managed to ask, her tone echoing the sharpness of her sudden turn toward resentment. "Can't a brother return home?" he shot back, the lightheartedness a thin veil over the seriousness of their past. His face was an open book of defiance, the old Jake shining through, but now tinted with something more mature, perhaps wisdom or regret. She wanted to challenge him, to dig into the reasons why he arrived uninvited. He had left them, abandoned the family when they needed him the most. He had given up on her. "You left us, Jake," she said, her voice rising and trembling as she fought against the flood of insecurities pouring forth. "I can't just forget that. But neither can our family forget the burden of our father's expectations, Sarah. You know that as much as I do." His words hung in the air, sharp and unapologetic, reminding her of the sacrifices they both made. The unresolved tension pierced through the emotional barricades she had erected. It was a confrontation she had long avoided, but now it pressed upon her like the weight of her scrubs. Would she allow resentment to dictate this moment, or could she muster the strength to reconcile the past with a possible future? "I'm not the same girl you left behind," she said, each word carrying the weight of a decade's worth of unsaid grievances. "I can't let your return uproot everything I've built, or endured." He countered sharply, his eyes reflecting a mix of hurt and understanding. "You became what they wanted, Sarah, a caregiver, a saint in scrubs." Her heart raced at the unfiltered truth embedded in his words. As much as she had dedicated herself to nursing, hadn't she lost pieces of herself along the way? And perhaps, beneath that, lingered the desire to be seen beyond the facade's plea for recognition of her true self. Their unspoken history crackled in the charged air between them. The weight of their shared pain suddenly felt lighter, but the sting of regret still punctuated the air. In this vivid moment, Sarah found herself questioning the path she had carved for herself. What would it take to prevent Jake's return from becoming another anchor around her neck? "Maybe we both have lives to rebuild," she finally said, quiet but firm. "What are you proposing?" he asked, a hint of hope sparking. "I don't know. Maybe we start rebuilding together," she offered, her courage unfolding as she hinted at redemption. As she said it, she felt a shift within her recognition that this unexpected encounter could propel her toward self-discovery. But the road ahead was laden with uncertainty, tangled with issues of trust and healing. The question loomed large: was she truly ready to confront those buried truths? And as her gaze met Jake's, she felt the enormity of their situation crashing in again, leaving her caught between the safety of the familiar and the adventure that lay ahead. Would she take that leap, or would her fear hold her back once more? The pull of the lake and the weight of the letter remained deep in her consciousness, reminding her that real change had always been waiting just beneath the surface, ready to erupt. It was now or never. The air was dense with a mix of nostalgia and tension, wrapping around Sarah like a heavy blanket. This moment, standing face to face with Jake, felt like standing at the edge of an abyss, a place where the past converged with the present, threatening to swallow her whole. The remnants of their childhood cast shadows over her, and the weight of their shared history pressed down, compelling her to act. "Sarah, please, I'm not asking you to forgive everything overnight," Jake said, his voice edged with vulnerability. "I want to exist in your life, whether it's as a brother or just someone who understands the weight we both carry." Yet the sincerity in his plea couldn't dull the sharp edges of her own resentment. What right did he have to waltz back in now, demanding a place in her heart? The wounds he had left festered beneath the surface, and now they threatened to break free. "How do I know you won't disappear again?" she questioned, the tremor in her voice betraying the fear she harbored. It was a risk, this reckoning, dragging their past into the light under scrutiny. For a fleeting moment, she weighed the cost of reopening the door to Jake's presence. "I can't promise I won't fail, but I want to try." I've been away long enough to know that running doesn't solve anything. It only prolongs the pain. His earnestness stirred something within her, a flicker of desire to reconcile, to understand, and perhaps reconnect. But reconnection came with a daunting caveat to demanded trust, and trust was a delicate thread that could unravel at the slightest tug. Sarah's mind spun with questions and doubts as she weighed the desire for familial love against the specter of betrayal that still loomed large in her consciousness. Yet, caught in that storm of emotions, a new thought sparked. What if rebuilding their relationship could be a catalyst for her own personal growth? She had spent so much time living in the shadow of others' expectations, sacrificing her individuality for the role of caretaker. Could embracing this confrontation mean embracing herself? Jake, she ventured, her voice steadying. We have a lot to sort out. If you want to rebuild something together, you'll have to be fully present and raw. I don't want any more ghosts lingering between us. At this, Jake nodded, an understanding passing between them, as if traversing an unspoken pact. Yet the specter of their father's rigid expectations remained a palpable weight. How deeply had those shaped their lives? I don't want to be just the woman in scrubs, or the dutiful sister, Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength. I've spent too long submerging my own ambitions and dreams for what was defined for me. His gaze softened, but it was tinged with a flicker of understanding. Then, let's define this together, he proposed, an invitation for accountability hanging between them. Sarah felt a swell of resolve as she asserted herself. We may have different paths, but I won't allow you to dictate mine anymore. The promise of new beginnings shimmered, just out of reach a vision of growth, rather than merely enduring. As the conversation meandered deeper into discussions of aspirations and fears, Sarah found herself confronting layers of identity that had long been shrouded in doubt. She craved the freedom to discover who she truly was outside of the confines of familial obligations. But the lake's calm surface belied the turbulent waves beneath. Sarah sensed a deeper truth waiting to be uncovered, not only within herself but also lingering in the dynamics of her relationship with Jake. What shadows remained hidden in their past that could threaten their rebuilding? And what truths about her own identity might emerge as they navigated this complex terrain together? With a sudden jolt, the realization struck her facing the buried frustrations and desires would require more than just honesty. It would demand courage. The road ahead was fraught with unknown challenges, yet the prospect of self-discovery tinged each uncertain step with exhilaration. As Sarah looked into Jake's earnest eyes, she knew the time had come not just for confrontation, but for transformation. Would this be the moment where they both finally faced not just each other, but their truths? The journey toward clarity and connection had only just begun. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the landscape, but the warmth did little to thaw the frost of uncertainty still gripping Sarah's heart. With every breath, she felt the weight of unexpressed emotions thickening the air between them. This was a crucial juncture, not just in her relationship with Jake, but in her own personal evolution, and she needed to usher this moment with integrity. Jake, she ventured again, her tone reflecting the gravity of what lay ahead. If we're going to start anew, we both need to be completely honest, even when it's uncomfortable. The words rolled off her tongue. A directive not only to him, but a promise to herself. She could no longer shy away from vulnerability. His expression morphed into one of seriousness. I get that, Sarah. I've had my own truths buried under guilt. I can share my struggles if you share yours. The suggestion pulled Sarah in two directions. Fear whispered that exposing her vulnerabilities would leave her exposed, ripe for more disappointment. But something deeper burgeoning, courage within urged her to be brave. Jake took a shaky breath. When I left, I thought it was for the best. I thought running away would erase what we endured. But I realize now that all I did was push away the people who cared. Each admission carried a heaviness that lingered in the air. But Sarah saw the resolve in his eyes, a shared vulnerability forming an unsettling bond. You weren't alone, she interjected, her voice low but firm. We were both hurting, in different ways. I've always been afraid of losing you again. Afraid that your absence would echo through every part of my life. Saying these things out loud felt foreign. Yet it was cathartic, each word unearthing buried doubts and frustrations. The silence that followed felt pregnant with possibilities, their shared admissions shifting the ground beneath them. Sarah could feel the urgency of the conversation, a pivotal moment where the ghosts of their past could either suffocate them or set them free. What if I told you that staying in my comfort zone kept me from trying out for that writing program I always dreamed of? She ventured, each realization tumbling forth like a flurry of autumn leaves. I've sacrificed too much of myself for the expectations laid out for me. I don't want to be defined by what anyone else wants. Seeing Jake nodding in understanding affected her even more than expected. I want to write, explore, and maybe even travel. I can't keep living in this box I've built around myself. His eyes widened with a mix of surprise and admiration. Then what's stopping you? Taking a deep breath, Sarah answered, the fear of not being good enough. What if I fail? What if I'm stuck outside of the family shadow and can't find my own light? Each word held the weight of her internal struggle. But as Jake listened, the fear seemed to lessen. Then we could fail together. I'll be right there, holding your hand through it, he replied. A spark igniting between them, a promise of accountability. In that single moment, something shifted in Sarah's chest. She felt a burgeoning clarity. Instead of the crippling doubt that had paralyzed her for so long, determination began to take root. What if she pushed past the fear? What if, instead of just seeing Jake as part of her complex history, she viewed him as a partner in her quest for authenticity? Yet, amidst the comfort of shared dreams, lay the lurking shadows of their past failures. Facing the depths of their familial wounds would inevitably resurface challenges Sarah had not yet dealt with. Even as she felt lighter, a familiar anxiety clung to her thoughts. Could this step into the unknown really lead to the transformation she craved? Staring into the distance, Sarah felt the wind whispering promises of change. And yet, foundations had to be built. Not just on redefining life outside of familial expectations, but on tackling the haunted scars of their shared childhood. As she glanced back at Jake, there was a moment of silent understanding. Rebuilding a relationship wasn't merely about mending the rift. It required facing their father's long shadow and redefining their identities. The truths they had yet to confront felt heavier than ever. Then let's not just focus on our dreams, Sarah finally added, her voice hardening with resolve. We need to face our past too, or we'll always be running from it. Would they muster the courage to confront the ghosts that lingered around their familial ties? As uncertainty thickened once more, Sarah felt a surge of determination. The time for genuine change was now. The sounds of water lapping at the shore faded into the background as Sarah wrestled with the tidal wave of emotions crashing over her. The tranquil lake mirroring the sunrise felt surreal against the chaos churning inside her. Would she truly have the fortitude to confront her past, to peel back the layers that had long overshadowed her aspirations? It was one thing to voice her dreams, but the remnants of her childhood scars were formidable adversaries. She turned to Jake, who stood a few paces away, gazing pensively at the water. His presence, once a source of comfort, now stirred both hope and trepidation within her. He had offered vulnerability, and now she was faced with something more demanding, accountability not just to him, but to herself. Is the promise of a new beginning worth the risks it entails? She thought, grappling with fears that whispered their deadly warnings. What if confronting their father's legacy didn't yield the catharsis they sought, but rather unearthed painful memories that should remain buried? Her heart quickened at the thought of unresolved conflicts, resurfacing, raw and real. Let's make a pact. Jake's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts, drawing her back into the moment. We face everything together, past and present. No running away this time. The sincerity in his eyes made her pulse quicken, and somewhere deep inside, a small flame ignited. The mere idea of shared confrontation had possibilities it hadn't before. But Sarah hesitated. What if our past defines us? She asked quietly, almost as if fearing her own words. What if, in uncovering it, we lose everything we've been trying to rebuild? The vulnerability she had summoned now bore the weight of her hesitations, stark and undeniable. Jake took a deliberate step closer. We can't let history dictate our future. It's crucial we acknowledge its existence, face it, head on, for us to grow. His conviction echoed deep within her and made her question what she'd hidden from even herself. There were choices she hadn't allowed herself to recognize. Then it's not just our family legacy we're confronting, but our own fears, she muttered, realization dawning on her. She had played the obedient child for far too long, molding her identity around family expectations while burying her real desires. The shadows of doubt were linked not only to their father's expectations but to her apprehensions about her own potential. We're both capable of so much more than we think, aren't we? She mused, her voice steadier now. What if facing our past empowers us instead? With every word, Sarah felt a crack in the armor of self-doubt she had clad herself in. Yes, it can transform us. Let's be each other's motivation, Jake encouraged, his enthusiasm cutting through her lingering fears. The writing program. I'll help you brainstorm your portfolio. We'll share ideas and critique each other's work. We can figure it out together. The prospect ignited a flicker of hope in her. Working on her writing, putting her abilities to the test, what if this was the answer she had been seeking? What if taking that leap would allow her to break free from her own mental shackles? But internal conflict remained. She felt a tug on her heart when the conversation swerved toward their father. We need to seek closure there, too, she said slowly, the heaviness of historical hurts tugging at her resolve. That's the part that terrifies me. Jake stepped even closer, bridging the emotional distance with palpable support. I'll be with you every step. We'll face it together. No more running. As she searched his eyes, she began to reconcile. Their pasts, while intertwined with pain, could also serve as the catalyst for their growth. Change was undeniably harder than retreat, but the promise of confronting those ghosts filled her with renewed courage. With just enough trepidation, Sarah nodded. Together, then. Let's start with a plan, a timeline for when we're going to face our past, and when I'll apply for that program. She felt invigorated, but also compounded by the dangers lurking behind emotional exploration. The road ahead was uncharted territory, dangerous and breathtaking all at once. As they stepped away from the lakeside, a sense of purpose propelled Sarah forward. She was tethering her identity not to the shadows of her childhood but to the light that lay in dreaming beyond it. Yet as they walked, doubt glanced over her shoulder. What would it take to truly embrace all that had been, and to step firmly into who she wanted to become? The journey ahead was ready to unveil hidden truths laced with doubt, but it was one she was resolute on undertaking. As plans crystallized in her mind, another thought bloomed with equal weight. How far would she need to go to finally liberate herself from the shackles of her past? The air felt charged with unspoken challenges, and as they tread deeper into their conversation, Sarah's heart raced what awaited them at the crossroads of their unveiling. The moment for real transformation would come, and she could feel it beckoning. The next day dawned with a startling clarity. Sunlight pouring through Sarah's window as if illuminating the cobwebs of her past. Her heart raced, fueled by a cocktail of anticipation and apprehension. The writing program application loomed as a tangible promise, one that signaled a fresh start while steeped in lingering dread. She sensed the approach of a new chapter, one that would shatter the silence of her old self. Settling at her desk, the blank page before her was an intimidating expanse. Fingers hovering over the keyboard, every doubt flooded back. What if her words were inadequate? What if her experiences weren't worth telling? Her inner critic was persuasive, whispering that her stories were too banal, too derived from her flawed family narrative. Would anyone even care? Yet, amidst that cacophony, a new voice emerged, one that resonated with Jake's encouragement and the belief that facing her past could forge her path forward. She took a deep breath, envisioning her childhood stories, not merely as burdens, but as raw materials for exploration. What if I don't just recount events, but transform them into lessons, she thought. That shift in perspective sparked a glimmer of determination. Determined, she began to type, words spilling forth like a long-bridled river. Stories emerged of moments when family expectations collided violently with her silent aspirations, tales tinged with both melancholy and strength. Writing became catharsis. The very act of confiding her thoughts on paper felt like releasing a pressure valve. Yet, that exhilarating release was married to a deeper exploration of her identity. Each keystroke lifted a weight off her shoulders. She began weaving connections between her childhood and her present, slowly realizing how the two were inextricably linked. But, as she wrote, the specter of her father's influence haunted the margins. Memories flickered scenes of harsh criticisms and unmet expectations. A surge of defiance surged through her. She wasn't merely recounting pain, she was reclaiming her narrative. An hour passed, and the page filled with ink-stained truths. But it wasn't without second-guessing. As she leaned back, she stared at the burgeoning story, uncertainty gnawing at her. Was this enough? Was this brave enough? It was a pivotal moment. She could either submit to self-doubt and retreat, or push through the discomfort and embrace the process. With renewed vigor, she combated that self-sabotage. I'll share this with Jake, she decided, motivated by the pact they had forged the previous day. Instead of feeling unworthy, she pictured their collaboration as a form of armor, fortifying her against the perils of vulnerability. Later that afternoon, she met Jake at a quaint cafe, the air thick with the aroma of coffee and pastries. It felt transformative, sitting across from him, knowing they were both embarking on this path together. Tension nestled in her stomach as she revealed her draft, her heart pounding like a drum as she passed the pages across the table. Jake's brows knitted in concentration as he read. Silence hung between them, heavy with anticipation. Would he validate her struggle, or dismiss it as mere whining? The seconds stretched, taunting her resolve. Finally, he closed the file, meeting her apprehensive gaze. This is incredible, he breathed. You have a talent for storytelling, Sarah. Your experiences shape your voice, making it uniquely yours. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. As they began to discuss the finer points of her work, they were interrupted when the atmosphere changed suddenly. Jake's phone buzzed insistently, breaking their focus. He glanced at the screen, his expression hardening. I need to take this, he said, his voice tense. As he stepped away, Sarah felt the energy shift. A wave of anxiety coursed through her. What if they were about to confront their history, but something external threatened to derail that mission? Alone at the table, she wrestled with the gnawing apprehension that lingered uninvited. This moment could have been a turning point, but now it felt precarious, like a tightrope above a deep unknown. She could feel the ground shifting beneath them, and uncertainty crept in again. The conversation with Jake was not just about validating her work. It was the first step towards confronting the father they both sought to understand and, perhaps, the one they needed to forgive. Would they stumble upon truths neither was ready for? As the tension unfurled, anticipation buzzed at the edges. What news would Jake bring back to the table? Would it invite more drama and derail their plans, or would it lead to resolution and empowerment? Sarah's heart raced. Something was on the brink, and it had the potential to change everything. The seconds crept by as Sarah continued to watch Jake across the cafe, her thoughts spiraling into what felt like an emotional whirlpool. She glanced at the landscape outside. The world continued to turn, oblivious to her internal chaos. Couples strolled past arm in arm, families laughed over shared meals, while she sat burdened by unsaid words and fears, threatening to unearth painful truths. She shifted in her seat, fingers tapping restlessly on the table. The draft she had shown Jake was more than just words. It was a manifesto for her identity, a declaration that she was ready to navigate the murky waters of her past. Every story she had penned was a fragile piece of her self-worth, and now, as an echo of her vulnerability filled the space, she couldn't shake the doubt. What if revealing her truths only led to exposing deeper wounds? As Jake finally returned, the air felt electric with unspoken tension. "Sorry about that," he said, settling into his seat with a heavy sigh. The weight in his eyes suggested that whatever he had learned on the phone had disrupted the tentative sense of security they had started to build. "What happened?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He met her gaze, an unsettling mixture of sympathy and resolve in his expression. "That was my mother. She's not doing well," he replied, the words hanging heavily between them. "We've been estranged for a while, but she needs me." The revelation landed hard. Sarah's heart ached for him, recognizing the weight of familial expectations all too well. Her instinct was to extend empathy, but she also felt a flicker of concern rising within herself. Would this impending crisis pull Jake away, hurling them into more unresolved problems of their own? "Is she okay?" "I think so, physically, but emotionally, I'm not so sure." His voice cracked slightly as he spoke, raw and vulnerable. The facade of their shared determination to tackle the past seemed to shake beneath the tremors of his reality. She opened her mouth to offer words of comfort, but the truth was, her own path felt twisted by Jake's news. She felt the urge to retreat into her shell, fearing that his crisis would eclipse her moment of growth. It became evident that their exploration of vulnerability would not unfold linearly. "Jake, I know this is a lot to take in," Sarah began slowly. "I'm not sure how this will affect our writing collaboration, especially if you need to be there for your mother." His brow furrowed as he processed her words. "I can't help but think that maybe I'll need to write about this," he mused, a note of determination threading through his sadness. "Just like you, I have stories to confront. Facing them might be the only way I can truly be there for her." The reflection struck Sarah. Perhaps this moment wasn't just a deviation from their shared mission, but rather a pivot, a chance for both of them to face their truths in parallel. Encouragement shone through her uncertainty, bolstered by the truth that confronting family narratives could forge bonds, even in turmoil. "Then perhaps we can write together," she suggested, surprised by the strength in her own voice. "Share your experiences. Unpack everything. I can help, you can help me, and we can do this together." He nodded slowly, the vulnerability of the moment transforming into a flicker of hope. "I would like that. I just didn't want this to become a burden for you." As the cafe buzzed around them, Sarah realized perhaps the fears they both harbored would not hold them back, but push them forward. The commitment to process their family histories, as daunting as it seemed, felt like it could be the key to deeper understanding, not just of their narratives but of themselves. Suddenly, a small laugh escaped her lips. "Just think about it. You, me, laying bare our family drama for the world. It sounds like it could be the most chaotic therapy session ever." Jake chuckled, his tension beginning to dissipate. "Still, I think it could be incredibly powerful. But first..." His gaze turned more serious. "Just what are we supposed to do about your father? We can't just ignore it now that we have everything on the table." The question hung heavily, a new tension knotting in Sarah's stomach. What would facing the past truly mean? Would it unlock the artistic floodgates they both needed, or would it unleash a torrent of pain? The layers of their stories were intricate, and each fold hinted at revelations still hidden. What would happen when their truths collided with those once deemed too painful to confront? In that moment, Sarah realized that the journey ahead was not merely about writing, but stepping into the storm together, a transformative path loaded with potential sparks of liberation. With a breath, she whispered, "Then it's time we take the first step, isn't it?" Outside, the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the pavement, mirroring the darkness yet to come. The weight of the unknown felt both frightening and exhilarating, each pulse of her heart echoing the urgency they'd unwittingly created. This crossroads would demand courage, and together they would face whatever emerged from the depths of their narratives. But even as they sat in shared resolve, a looming question fluttered at the edges of Sarah's thoughts. What darkness lay in her father's final chapter, ready to rewrite the story yet again? The air grew heavy between Sarah and Jake, both locked in the unspoken weight of their respective pasts. Sarah gazed down at her untouched coffee, the bitter aroma mingling with the sweet scent of the pastries. Each whiff pricked at her unease. She had been so focused on confronting her own father that now Jake's dilemma felt intrusive, like a thorn in the fabric of her burgeoning resolve. But as he took a deep breath, his eyes glistening with unshed tears, her instincts kicked in. This moment wasn't solely about her growth anymore. It was about navigating a crisis together. "Jake," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We can't ignore this. You need to face whatever is happening with your mother. I want to support you, but I need you to be honest with me too." His nod was slight, as if he were weighing the gravity of her request. "I don't want to bring you down with my issues," he replied, a flicker of guilt rippling over his features. "I mean, you've already got so much on your plate with your father. Speaking of which," she interjected, her stomach tightening, "what does facing my father mean for me? I've avoided him for so long, and now that I'm here on the verge of diving in, it feels like there's an electric fence around my memories." Jake leaned forward, visibly engaged. "What about writing that scene? You can depict your feelings about him. Maybe that's part of your catharsis." She frowned, considering his suggestion. "Writing may not unearth the root of these feelings. It feels like a facade, a way to intellectualize the pain instead of feeling it. But isn't facing it, through your writing, a way of turning turmoil into clarity?" He paused, letting her digest the thought. "I mean, isn't that what we're doing with my mother? Diving into uncomfortable truths to process them." As the realization settled in, she felt the walls she had so carefully constructed around her memories begin to tremble. "But what if I find something I can't handle? Something that breaks me?" The fear was palpable in her chest, threatening to stifle her voice. "I don't want you to feel broken. I want you to find strength. If anything, revealing truths might free you." Jake's sincerity filled the space, draping around them like a warming blanket. It was a small moment of clarity, the notion that vulnerability might pave the way for empowerment. Sarah swallowed hard. And the potential for fallout. "My father. He isn't just some character in a story. He's my history. Maybe all our histories deserve to be retold," Jake suggested, his expression brightening with earnestness. "What if our narratives intertwine, showing both sides of the coin, what you learned from your father, and what you want to learn from the confrontation?" Her thoughts hummed with possibility. "With honesty and courage, we can register that pain but also illustrate the potential for growth." The words felt liberating as they spilled from her lips. She realized she was beginning to embrace the chaos of their intertwining stories, instead of fearing it. "I have a rough idea of where my story starts," she said, her voice gaining strength. "But I need to unpack it. I need to be brave enough to expose the ugly parts that might emerge. Then let's commit to it." Jake's eyes sparked with determination. "This can be our way to wrestle with everything, to breed accountability for ourselves." They both settled into the enormity of their pact, the air charged with determination. But beneath the surface, doubt crept in like a curious dark cloud. What if they discovered parts of themselves that were irreparably fractured? What if healing came at a price neither was willing to pay? As they gathered their things to leave, the cafe felt like a confessional. With each step outside, Sarah sensed her heart racing, not only from fear, but from an unexpected thrill. The road to unveiling her father's story lay ahead like a winding path full of unknowns. "I need to think about how to approach this," she whispered aloud, partly to herself, her fingers clenched tightly around the strap of her bag. Enveloped in the twilight, She could almost hear her own heartbeat echoing in tandem with Jake's, as they walked side by side. But even as they stepped into the night, the question lingered at the back of her mind. What was it going to take for her to rewrite the narrative that had defined her for so long? Would they truly harness their stories to shift toward liberation? Or would they drown in the ache of the past? As they approached the crossroads intersecting to many lives, Sarah knew one thing for certain. The fight had only just begun. The moon hung low, casting a silver sheen over the pavement, as Sarah and Jake walked in silence. The weight of their pact loomed larger than the looming shadows that danced around them. Each footfall echoed, a pulsating reminder of the journey they'd committed to undertake. The urgency of the moment, however, masked a deep-seated fear. A question nestled tightly in Sarah's mind, demanding clarity. As they neared the lake, the gentle lapping of water against the shore became a solace. It was a familiar sound, a childhood memory where she would often sit, pondering the complexities of her life, far away from the chaos at home. "Let's sit for a moment," Sarah suggested, the weight of her thoughts pressing her to find stability in the familiar. They settled on a weathered bench, the wood cold beneath them. Sarah watched as the moonlight danced atop the water, mirroring the turmoil she felt inside. "This is where I sought clarity, once upon a time," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake turned to her, his brow furrowed in concern. "Do you think you can find that clarity again?" "I don't know." The admission stung. "It's like I've built a wall around my memories, and now I'm being asked to break it down. What if I uncover something I can't face? Then maybe you find a way to confront it together." His response resonated, but her instinct told her this was a solitary journey. The memories stemming from her father's absence were hers to unravel. And while she craved the support, she feared burdening him further. She took a deep breath, a flurry of emotions cascading over her: doubt, anticipation, and the whisper of courage. "I need to write," she finally declared, the truth settling within her. "But I need to approach it differently. Not just as a narrative, but as a part of me. To reclaim it, not to hide it." Jake watched her closely, a glimmer of understanding sparking in his eyes. "What do you mean by that?" "The layers. There's so much I've buried under the surface. Writing can't just be a way to say, 'This happened.' I need to translate those feelings. The raw ones that exist beyond the experience." She felt a surge of excitement swirl through her veins. "It's not about crafting a story. It's about unearthing who I've become in response to the pain." "Will you share that process with me?" he asked gently. A part of her hesitated. This battle was hers, a wrestling match with her own ghosts. Yet, the other half yearned for connection. "I'm not sure how deep I'll dig. I might end up exposing things that even I don't understand yet." He shifted closer, his resolve unwavering. "Whatever you find, I'm here. You shouldn't go through it alone." The sincerity in his voice felt like a balm on her wounds. Maybe Jake was right. Perhaps vulnerability could spark connection instead of isolation. Their collective reckoning might create something transformative, both for themselves and each other. As they spoke, the air filled with possibility, yet the shadows loomed large, whispering doubts into her consciousness. What if confronting these hidden truths revealed ruptures in the fabric of her identity? The question hung heavily between them, unaddressed yet palpable. "I need to work on this," Sarah finally said, a resolute strength emerging within her. "But first, I need to revisit my past, my father's role. I have to unearth his truths." Jake nodded, but there was an edge of apprehension in his agreement. "Just remember, what you uncover can help you grow, even if it's painful." They rose from the bench, uncertainty swirling in the heated breeze. As they walked back towards town, a lurking thought struck her. What if unraveling her father's core story led to revelations about herself she wasn't prepared to handle? But the uncertainty swirled like the leaves at their feet, and all she could do was take the first step along this treacherous path. "I need to speak to him," she said, a fierce determination punctuating her words. "If I'm going to confront my past, I might as well do it head-on." The moment felt electric. the promise of transformation, teetering on the edge of understanding. Yet, the whisper of apprehension drew nearer with each step. Would her confrontation lead toward enlightenment, or only deeper shadows? As they approached her apartment, the question thrummed in her chest like a relentless drum. Would she be ready for whatever truths awaited her in the depths of their shared history, or would she retreat once again into the safety of avoidance? The hush of the evening settled like a blanket over Sarah's apartment, cloaking her in a rare moment of stillness. The sound of her heart, steady yet insistent, mirrored her resolve. Today was the day she would confront her father. And with that decision came a powerful surge of clarity, unlike anything she had felt before. It was more than a simple meeting. This was her ritual of reclamation and opportunity to unravel the patterns of silence that had dictated her life for far too long. As she arranged her thoughts, Sarah felt the weight of her intention pressing upon her. Sitting at her desk, she reviewed her draft, words coming alive against the stark white of the page. Each line was imbued with meaning, a revelation of her struggles, victories, and the identity she was determined to solidify. She could feel the specter of doubt lingering, yet it dimmed against the brighter light of her determination. Everything she had written was a significant step towards freedom, towards redefining who she wanted to become outside of her father's shadow. Today, I will speak my truth, she murmured softly to the empty room, grounding her nerves. The decision to not only face her father, but to articulate her emotions before him felt like leaping into an abyss, one that required extraordinary bravery. But for the first time, her fear was matched by the fire of her intentions. Around midday, Sarah stood before her father's modest house, the familiar sight evoking a rush of childhood memories, both treasured and tainted. She hesitated, the scene before her both inviting and intimidating. Striding forward, she knocked firmly on the door. As it swung open, her father's surprised expression mirrored a blend of apprehension and curiosity. "Sarah," he said, his voice a hesitant mix. "What brings you here?" "I need to talk," she affirmed, her tone steadier than she felt. "There are things we need to address, things we've always avoided." Surprisingly, she could see the flicker of acknowledged weight in his stance. His eyes lingered on her, searching for a glimpse of the little girl lost amidst the tumult of their familial struggles. The years had reshaped their relationship, but today, she would redefine it. They settled into the living room, the air heavy with unresolved tension. "I've been writing," she began, finding strength in her voice, "writing about our family, about our past, and what it's meant for me." As she spoke, she was both the girl seeking approval and the woman demanding to be heard. "I need you to understand how your choices have affected me." Her father leaned back, the muscles in his face tightening as he absorbed her words. "Sarah, I didn't realize my actions had such an impact. I thought I was doing what was best for you all." "Best?" The word dripped with contempt. "You thought leaving your legacy to burden us was best. You've penned our family's narrative with secrets, with pain, without considering how those shadowed my life. I want to be more than just the dutiful daughter." There it was, the truth poured out, raw and unfiltered. Each phrase carved through the decades of silence, breaking down barriers and exposing deeper wounds. For the first time, she felt unshackled, liberated from the painful confines of expectation. "I've stumbled through life, just being what you wanted me to be, a caregiver. A nurse while my dreams and desires languished untold," she continued, feeling her confidence swell, but no more. "I am taking control of my life." As silence enveloped the room, Sarah steadied her gaze, refusing to let him wriggle free from the conversation. "I came here to confront you, because I need to see you, really see you. I need you to acknowledge the hurt within this family, to understand that your decisions from the past still ripple into our present." Her father swallowed hard, visible regret washing over his features. "I can't change what I did. But if it has hurt you, I am truly sorry." Sarah felt the weight of his admission settle lightly in the air, yet it was only a portion of the reconciliation she sought. "Your apologies mean something, but actions matter more. I want us to begin the hard work of healing, not just with words, but with effort. For the first time, she could see a flicker of understanding in his expression. I'll try. I promise to do better. Will you let me? This question hung between them, weighty yet hopeful. Sarah realized that acknowledging the past, alongside a sincere willingness to change, could reshape the future. Yes, but it needs to be real. I need our conversations to lead to genuine change, starting today. With that proclamation, she felt a rush of satisfaction wash over her, small step towards emotional freedom and individuality that had long been stifled. As they navigated deeper discussions of the past, Sarah's voice took on a newfound strength. She began to envision her writing not merely as catharsis, but as a continued dialogue with herself. She understood that her journey to redefine her identity might be long, but with each spoken truth, she styled the fabric of her familial narrative. Exiting her father's home, the sun glowed warmly in the sky, illuminating her path and her burgeoning resolve. Every ounce of shame and fear that had gripped her was being replaced by a steadfast belief that she could embrace both her past and her future. Sarah turned toward her apartment, a place now echoing the promise of self-discovery and reinvention. Immediately she reached for her phone, her fingers trembling with excitement as she texted Jake, "Let's reconnect and talk about the next steps." I finally confronted my father, and it was liberating. I'm ready to dive deeper. In that moment, Sarah felt she had achieved something monumental. Yes, she now understood that confronting her father didn't erase the scars etched in her history, but it had built the groundwork for something fundamentally different, an opportunity to reclaim herself beyond her family's narrative. Standing at the crossroads of her journey, she recognized that her transformation lay not just in surviving the past, but in illuminating her path forward, fiercely and unapologetically. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. You need to show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share.